We will now go to our questions from the floor, and the format here again will be a couple of minutes, if you can, to address the issue. Each question may be addressed to a specific panelist, but others feel free after that panelist has responded to add something if you like. And the first is for Sid Snow. Sid, do investments in tourist attractions pay off for the town? Public attractions such as the coast-to-coast sidewalk and new bike trails.
Well, this is great, not being prepared to just have to give you what my hunch is on it. I think yes. The answer is definitely yes. Anything you can do to create excitement, to stimulate the people to enjoy what they're doing and to get out and take advantage of what all Orleans has to offer.
Anyone else comment on that? Mr. Withrow, no one understands their recent home assessment. It's just the opening line. I spoke with Ken Hall, who said not to compare this year's to last. So, what is the new algorithm?
Well, there is indeed some truth to the fact that Big Brother is the state, and Big Brother has passed down several mandates of how they want the assessors' offices all across the state to determine values. I'm certainly not the expert on it. That's why Ken does his job. Obviously, the person who wrote that might have some issues. I will say that Ken did a great job of actually providing time for hearings for everybody. I don't know if there's a town left on the Cape that does that on a triannual certification. We had about 80 individuals take them up on that. The reports I've heard back have all been positive, that people got the answers that they were looking for. And as a side note, you might be interested to know that for the very first time, the time I've been around, a good 30% of the people that came in complaining were complaining because their assessments were too low. Now, clearly these are people that are either about ready to put their home on the market, or worse scenario, have some equity loans that's causing an issue with the value going down. But I strongly encourage anybody who has questions to contact the assessor's office. I hope you'll find them to be extremely giving of their time to try to answer any questions you have.
David, you're popular. You have another one.
Lucky me.
See if I can get this right and understand the spirit of the question. How can we work to adjust our state return rate to increase the 2% to something like a Wellesley at 6%? And that, I guess, was addressing some of the points you brought up in your opening comments.
I actually had written something down earlier about that for a previous meeting. Let me just read it and hopefully that'll save some time. Sure. As the economy eventually does turn around, we here, especially on the Cape, need to advocate once again for a revamped local aid formula. As projected for FY 2011, state aid in New Orleans, as I mentioned, is only 1.5%. It's hard for me to imagine a situation where the state reallocates existing state funding. Once a town gets what they're getting, it's going to be very hard to pull it back unless they do it across the board like we've seen with the local aid cuts in the last 2 years. But as state funding rebounds, and I believe that it will, but it's a ways away. But when it does rebound, that I think is the time for our legislators to really work hard at getting a revised formula. Something that I can envision where maybe the towns that have been getting a lot of state aid normalize, stabilize, and as new money is infused into the state coffers, that is able to be reallocated. The formula is not perfect. I have not designed a formula that I think is better, that's for greater minds than me. But sometimes I think progressive taxes can go too far, and in my opinion, the local aid formula has gone way too far.
Thank you. Here's a great one. It gets right to the crux of the issue. It's a general question to all. Where's the future growth? What industry will add jobs? It's a 10-point toss-up.
I'm going to jump in on that because I got cut off early and didn't get to the good stuff. So, I think the point I was really wanted to make tonight is I think we're kind of in a catch-22. I mean, we developed the Cape into a lovely place that we all have a great fondness for. We've done a lot of good things in the Cape, as far as preserving open space, trying to limit the growth and be able to control development and all that. But at the same time, for businesses to be able to prosper, they must grow. They must continue to increase their base. They need more revenue as prices go up on everything. So I don't have any answer to it, but what I'm trying to say is that we have to really pay attention to it in the future and maybe take a look at the direction that the town of Orleans needs to go to keep the economic health viable for businesses.
Anyone else?
I'd
Elizabeth?
like to add something about a new infrastructure project that's coming to Cape Cod called Open Cape. You may have already heard about this, and it's a larger pipeline to bring data through the internet to all the way down to the tip of the Cape into Provincetown. Right now we have, I'm not a technology specialist, I'll just say that as a caveat, but I do know like the broad issues in that are that we have a very tiny pipeline and large data files don't travel well across, in this pipeline. And I know that there are reports from Provincetown, some of the bed and breakfast owners, their reservation systems go down. I've heard of one business who was a financial management company that wanted to locate in Provincetown and felt like they didn't have reliable internet service and instead located in Harwich. I think that with the coming of Open Cape, there's an opportunity for more sophisticated, creative businesses to locate on the Cape, like architectural firms or design firms that have more sophisticated files that can be uploaded and traveled. Lots of people that have them now, they do work in the middle of the night. And this is something that I've become sensitized to through talking with Teresa Martin and Gary Delius, who have really led the charge on getting Open Cape here. And I think they raised $23 million, and they're now in the process of hiring a contractor to lay down the pipe. So I see that as a potential economic development opportunity when the infrastructure gets here.
Anyone else care to comment? Bob?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Just to touch upon a point that I made earlier, which is there's been a huge build-out on the Cape, a lot of new construction over the last, say, 20 years. It's now becoming older construction. In other words, it's going to need new roofs, it's going to need new kitchens, and new bathrooms, and new tile, in the kitchens and bathrooms. All these things are in the trades, and again, to touch upon an earlier point, when you look at what people in the trades are being paid, rightly so, they're being paid a lot of money. Look at next time you hire a builder to come in and redo your kitchen, see what his hourly wage is. Those folks can afford to buy real estate here, so I think that that as we go forward, there's going to be job opportunities there. There'll be renovations. I think these big McMansions that we all get so weary of, I think those are coming to a quick close for a host of reasons, and that does not break my heart. The rules and regulations, a lot of those big houses were being built close to the water, and of course we now have bylaws that make that difficult to do, and I think that's a good thing. But folks will want to renovate and add on, and you're going to see the transition from new building to those sorts of projects. And again, I think there's a future there. Those are real jobs. We haven't talked a lot about the medical profession. People have this notion that young people can't move here. Well, both of my sons are here. One has his own business and does well, and my younger son is an ER nurse at the hospital. And as you would imagine, those are decent jobs as well. So it's the medical profession on the Cape, because of all of us aging folks, has a very bright future. So I think there are some opportunities out there.
Just, Alan, I'm curious, from your perspective as a commercial lender, I mean, have you noticed any trends over the last couple of years of the change of business requests for funding at all?
Not, it's Pretty much the traditional restaurant, lodging. Of course, you get into the insurance companies and the banks, and as is the case with Cape Cod 5, we're all aging, and they're all looking at younger people to come and replace them, replace us. And they're just not out there because those young people can't afford to be here. And it's really presenting a real problem, and I'm sure it's the same as in the insurance companies as well. That we need the young people here, the young, educated people that can pick up where we leave off.
Stating a little interpretation, excuse me.
Again, it looks like a general question relative to business retention. Online buying is not just a geographic issue, it is a matter of product availability. How do you solve the issue of Cape stores carrying specialty items for the local consumer, i.e. clothes, food, etc., that can be found online?
I'd like to address that. This is a challenge. I've been talking a lot with Ann Reynolds at the Cape Cod Commission about why we can't have a local phone app, which is a modern way that people can find products and locations. And the fact is that the Cape doesn't have a widespread database of all Cape businesses, and it's hard to build a comprehensive online application that a lot of different businesses can participate in. So this is something I know that the Cape Cod Commission is looking into. Again, Open Cape has providing the opportunity to do that. This is something that the CDP is very interested in. Businesses like Snow's do a wonderful job with their online marketing, and you can buy a lot of their products off their website, but also Sid does a really nice job with other types of marketing and having it available. But a lot of small businesses don't have that. And one of the reasons is this lack of infrastructure. I had the great pie-in-the-sky idea to do a local buy local phone app, for both local people and visitors that could respond to campaign kind of materials and then, get invigorated and renew their commitment to local, and then, give them the tools that they needed to do that, which is what I think you need to do. People have the right values, but what's the tool? Because we're all modern consumers. We want convenience, right? I know I do. Well, unfortunately, the infrastructure is not there to build it that easily, but it is a discussion that's going on. And I think that has to be the modern wave for the Cape to both capture that collective value that we have to our local community, but do it in a modern way so that we can have the same convenience that we would expect in today's world.
Thanks. Anyone else care to comment on the issue?
I'd like to jump in on that too. I mean, the internet sales is definitely here to stay, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. Probably about 2% of my sales right now are done online, and I'm projected to do a lot more than that. The difficulty on the Cape or anywhere really is that you just get a web designer and you get a website up and a shopping cart and check out and you're all set to go. It's actually a lot more complicated than that. It's very, very difficult to be competitive with the world, and that's what you're doing, not just with everybody else on the Cape. What the Cape, I'd like to see happen to the Cape is to provide a network of consultation to the businesses that we have to help them grow, not only in getting websites and teaching them how to be competitive and do Google Analytics and all that sort of thing, but just in running their businesses. And make mention to one of the handouts that I have out there is there's an organization through the Cape Chamber that's associated with the Cape Chamber and Commission, but it's called Entree Center 2.0, and we're trying to come up with a way that we can offer consultants to businesses at affordable pricing to help fund some of these. Not everyone's going to do everything for free, but there is a tremendous wealth of talent and knowledge on the Cape, and I want to see us be able to tap into that and have a way of being able to deliver that to the businesses and help them grow.
Okay, again, a question for the entire panel. So how do we get young people to stay in Orleans? How do we get them to come here in the first place?
I'll say something that's going to really probably get me in a lot of trouble because it kind of plants against the grain, but believe it or not, a lot of young people are staying here, kids that grew up here. And I'm just kind of thinking about my own life. I had a basement put under a house recently. The person that did that, local kid, it was expensive, but it helped him get by. The person that, and of course he owns his own house here in Orleans, Brewster, and like a lot of us back then, did a lot of sweat equity, bought a piece of land and built a house slowly. Nowadays, kids are buying kind of wrecked houses and slowly chipping away at them. Can the towns do more there? Absolutely. It kills me as a real estate broker because prices really are back down to being much more reasonable. I've been advocating for a long time that the town buy some of these properties and convert them into rental housing for people working here in Orleans, living in Orleans, that sort of thing. I could go on and on. I have a lot of friends that grew up, all their kids are here, own houses here. They work hard, and you really do have to scrape by, but that's ever thus here. This is never the Cape in the 63 years I've been here. If you're a year-rounder that grew up here, it's never been easy to get by. That's not a new phenomenon here. But there are opportunities for young people, and I think we have this misconception that they're all moving away. They're not. We certainly can do more and should do more, but it's perhaps not quite as extreme as it's made out to be. Thanks.
I'd like to jump in on that too, if I may, and I want to say that the audience has got some excellent questions, so I appreciate that, and this also helps me be able to finish what I was going to say earlier. And I will refer back to the study in 2007 by Peter France, and basically he said that the Cape is unbalanced in its population. In order for it to be able to prosper economically in the future, it needs to balance that out, and we need to retain more younger people here. And even though there are some more that are staying, it's not as many as it needs to be. And the number one reason that young adults are leaving the Cape is the lack of good jobs, the lack of good paying jobs. The Cape job pay scale is much under than any other part of the state, and it's because of the nature of the economy that we have. It's really not a year-round economy, and so we have to figure out a way that we can help businesses so that they can be able to pay more, get the revenue to pay more to keep them here. But basically, growth has ceased on the Cape, and the young people are continuing to leave. I don't have the answer, but I think it's something that should concern us all. And I have to say that the Cape Cod Focus, which was a group of people that got together to continue the recommendations that were left by Peter France, has been disbanded because of lack of leadership. This is another issue that we have is how often can we tap into volunteer help and guarantee volunteer help from business leaders that are already working full-time jobs. It just doesn't work. The answer maybe is to pay people to do this for us. But then we go back to how can we pay for them? Because we're trying to reduce taxes so that make it affordable. So where's the money going to come from? So it's a revolving circle, and it's just food for thought. That's all.
At the risk of calling myself young still, when I'm now in my 40s, I would like to actually offer a personal perspective, because I moved here in my early 30s. And the reason why I was able to do that is because I did really well in the real estate market in Boston. I came with a pretty sizable down payment, and I was able to buy a house in Wellfleet. But I was in that age range where people leave, and I came. And for me, what I found was a very welcome door for a creative life here, and really moving here changed my life in terms of my creative outlets, and probably I'm a better and more well-rounded person having lived here. So that's a major attraction, I think, for young people is the creative opportunities here. I think the thing that as I stayed and moved into increasing leadership positions, the things that scared me about staying here as I got older was the lack of professional development and management training that you would get in a more urban environment. And I know the Workforce Investment Board is addressing that through their CAMP program for professional management training, and there are a few folks in the room. I know Cape Cod 5, Margie Sparrow sent some folks and Sid to get professional management training, and I think young people are really hungry for that kind of thing, and also computer skills. You know, those of us, because I grew up professionally in Boston in a corporate environment, and then went into the nonprofit world, and I got a lot of my internet training and computer skills training with a big company. I worked for a big bank that had a lot of resources and training. But when I came here, I noticed the same folks that were same age as I was, grew up in smaller businesses that had tiny budgets, didn't know how to interact with computers, and I know even now, sometimes I feel like I'm falling behind with my computer skills, and in a world, as Sid said, where you're competing with the entire world of really sophisticated people in terms of skills, it can feel like we're falling behind. And so that's just what my perspective as someone who came here and it continues to make a choice to stay here, but some of the things that I think about.
Thanks. Our next question is directed to Detective Higgins. Please talk about how drugs in Orleans impact our economy, including what role they play in our economy.
How long do I have? 5 minutes.
There's a problem.
Well, I think the down and dirty, real quick answer to that is that with the amount of drugs that we're seeing, the influx, and I'm sure you've all seen the articles that have been in the paper recently about the pain clinics down in Florida, et cetera. Not to pick on Florida, but what's happened, or what we have discovered, is that there is a large amount of narcotics being sent up to the Northeast, and it's basically economic. It's basic economics 101. The pain clinics down in Florida, the pills that they're purchasing, and typically it's oxycodone 30, or more typically known as perk 30s. Those pills are being sold or being bought down in Florida at about $4 to $5 a pill. Those same pills up here in the Northeast are fetching basically $1 a milligram, so a perk 30 is getting $30 a milligram. So the actual narcotic trade itself is rather expensive. Narcotics are, it's not a cheap vice. The problem is that to support that vice, some of the younger folks in town, and I don't mean to pick on the younger folks, but that seems to be a demographic. We're looking at the 17 to 24-year-olds. They take the easy way and they'll break into someone's house, and not necessarily break into someone's house, just walk into someone's house. Unfortunately, we're of a group of people, especially the group here, where we never worried about locking the doors of our houses. Well, these people are taking advantage of that, and what's happening is the jewelry, computers, anything that you have in the house that's unsecured is now theirs, and they'll take those items to locations, other locations, Boston, Hyannis, Barnstable, Yarmouth, and they'll sell them so they can support their drug trade or their drug habit. The problem is that you have $10,000 worth of jewelry in your house, and they take that and they go to a junk dealer and they sell the jewelry for $450. They take that $450 and purchase their narcotics. Well, that junk dealer made a huge profit. That $10,000 of jewelry or $10,000 worth of silver that he paid $450 is going to end up getting melted down and sent off Cape. So it has an effect in the realm that the property that's being sold is not commensurate to the narcotic trade itself. And what you're having is someone will have their house broken into for $10,000, $15,000 to support someone's drug habit. And that definitely has an effect.
As a follow-up to that, what advice do you have for senior citizens on that subject? Yes, lock your doors.
Lock your doors. It's not the economy it used to be. This isn't the Orleans of the 50s and 60s where you could just walk away from your house and not worry about things. You need to secure your dwelling. You need to secure your vehicle when you go into town. Just as an example, my office at the police station kind of faces the parking lot out front. During the summertime, I'll see tourists come into the station to ask directions. When they get out of their car, I can hear their alarms going off. They're locking their cars in the police department parking lot. You don't have to worry about your car being stolen from there. But these are people from outside. They're locking their cars. We need to do the same thing. We just need to be more cognizant. And, you know, I have family members that will go to the bank and get the bank envelope and put it in their coffee cup holder and then go to the coffee shop to get it. Well, there may only be $35 in that thing, but someone's going to get a window smashed out to grab that $35. They don't. The bad guys don't care what kind of wreak and havoc they do upon you in your life, just so they can get their $35 or even the change in the coffee cup holder. We've had several cars that have just been rooted through and just change taken out of the center console, the ashtray, whatever the case may be. So I can't specifically address the seniors. I have to say it's across the board. It would be very beneficial, if I were to get a call to come out and investigate a crime where someone was actually had something broken into, as opposed to them just opening the door and taking the stuff out.
Thank you. Question for Ellen Coel. It is heard that banks have limited/reduced commercial revolving lines of credit that are crucial to seasonal businesses. The practice restricts economic growth. Can you comment?
Would you read it again?
Yes. It is heard that banks have limited/reduced commercial revolving lines of credit that are crucial to seasonal business. This practice restricts economic growth. Can you comment?
I'm not familiar with restricted lines of credit. We provide commercial lines of credit for seasonal fluctuations in people's seasonal businesses. I've probably got over 125 of them on the books. That's a normal product. I'm not certain what a restricted line of credit would be.
I think the sense was that there's the sense that banks are being more restrictive.
No, not at all.
Which you commented in your opening.
No. The lines of credit that we're providing today are the same lines of credit that we've been providing for the last 30, 40 years in Orleans. Lines of credit themselves are so extremely important to these seasonal businesses, whether it's building up their seasonal inventory to get ready for the upcoming season, or paying their bills or paying their payables until the receivables come in. It just keeps the businesses going. At least my experience at Cape Cod 5 is that we're not restricting these at all. These are it's a typical common product that we'd like to put out there.
And again, as you alluded to in your opening comments,
the demand's
not there.
No, the demand's not there. I will say, the one caveat I will say to that is that at one point there was a big push for overdraft lines of credit, and a lot of people got in trouble with overdraft lines of credit because they overdrew their accounts and couldn't pay them back. So those had been restricted somewhat, but not typical seasonal working capital lines of credit. That's a nice product.
Thank you. Again, a question for any and all panelists. In thinking about what can be done to improve the economy in Orleans, what improvements to the town do you see that could be done to attract tourists to shop in Orleans as they do in Chatham, such as making Orleans more attractive to walk in?
I'll jump in on that. I happen to be on a subcommittee of the planning board right now. We're talking about following up on the Orleans Village study that the selectmen very wisely contracted to have done, and I know a lot of the residents here answered a lot of surveys. There's a tremendous amount of information there, and if you guys haven't had the opportunity to review that, I know it's on the town website. I don't know how to find it, but it's on there, and I think that you all be benefit by the time to take a look at it. What the committee's doing is make recommendations to the planning board to take forward to the selectmen later on this fall. And my take, and I know they're running out of time here, but my take is a lot of the focus is on aesthetics, it's on infrastructure, it's on building bikeways, better parking, building signs, storefronts, marketing the town website. We're also talking about hopefully forming a bunch of committees that can really dig into this deeper. It seems that over time we kind of keep studying things, and it's now time to start acting on things. So I got myself involved in this because I really like to see some action this time around, and I think that if we all work together, we can have a lot of action. So I want to thank you because I got everything I wanted to say in.
No problem. Anyone else like to comment?
If I could jump in for
Okay.
a second. One thing I've noticed is I've spent some time traveling, and I've been to Nantucket and other places that are very similar to Orleans and being a tourist-type community. And one thing I've noticed in other communities that Orleans isn't is that this is not a very walking-friendly town. In other words, people don't drive here to walk around town anywhere. Now, on Nantucket, when my wife and I recently went there, we were handed a trifold folder that showed the activities for that weekend or the coming week or for the month of what was going on in Nantucket. And we could look at it and kind of plan out our day. We never rented a car while we were over there, not that we would have to, but there seemed to be more of a directed, activities within the town itself that made it more friendly for people to be able to move around, and we could decide where we were going and what we wanted to do based on this information. Now, is that something that Orleans can do? I don't know. There's more people with more horsepower than me here. But I just think that in these type of communities, these resort communities, they seem to be focusing on themselves and the activity that they have control over. And, like I said, can Orleans do that? I don't know. I guess that's going to be a decision made other than me.
Observe that a couple of things. Orleans has a lot of potential that's untapped. I think we all agree on that when it comes to downtown. Unfortunately, we're sort of truncated by two major secondary roads, Route 6A and Route 28, and that's ever back since I was back in the Orleans Planning Board in the 70s. We've been struggling with that issue. But we do have something, lovely as Chatham is, lovely walking town, provided you walk to Chatham in July or August, because trying to park there is a bit of a challenge these days. But we have something they don't have. We have Town Cove. And not only do we have Town Cove, we have a major little parking area down at the Yacht Club. We have two lovely pocket parks to either side of Town Cove. And you take your life in your hands if you try and go there. So it might be as simple as just having a policeman at the end of Cove Road to encourage people to get across the road. You could get a picnic anywhere in town and walk down there and have a lovely little break. Sometimes the little things can make a big difference.
Thank you. And there's also a follow-up to that question. Have any plans been considered for a bus depot to be located in central Orleans?
I don't recall the answer to that for the town, really. I think my take, Elizabeth can probably follow up on this. I think the Cape has a situation with transportation because I don't think there's a transportation company in the country that is profitable, and so in order to have public transportation, you need to subsidize it. So we come back to the old problem again, how we can afford everything. There's a lot of things that we need to do, but we have to do some serious thinking about what's important to us and what can we afford and prioritize it.
Thank you. A couple more. Again, to the panel generally, are you seeing an increase in retirees versus seasonal / second home new arrivals compared to years past? I think that'd be a question for Bob.
That kind of falls into my
Review.
I would say that right now the market is where I like to be, which is end users. And end users consist of people that are retiring, people that are buying second homes with the idea of maybe renting them a little and eventually retiring them to them. And I'm glad to say young people that are finding the prices more affordable. And I think when the real estate market here gets into big trouble, in my experience, I've seen three that come to mind that are were serious, serious real estate corrections. We're living through one of them right now. Another one was back in the 80s when we had a major correction. And what happened was when real estate on Cape Cod becomes an investment rather than an end use again being a place you're going to live in, whether it's summers or retire to or some combination of that. But I've seen times when house painters and school teachers were flipping real estate, buying vacant lots, and we had years where real estate was going up 36% a year, 3% a month, and people were even selling purchase and sales agreements. In other words, you'd put a property under agreement, you would never even own it, you would sell your purchase and sales agreement, somebody else would buy it. That always goes boom. It just blows apart, and when that happens, we have grave consequences. And this last round, of course, was nationwide, where people, because of home equities and low interest rates, people's homes became their credit cards, and that was really disastrous.
Thanks. Sid, you mentioned several organizations on the Cape with lots of talent. The list was long. Are these organizations connected? Do they leverage communication in Cape Cod community? Is the information centralized online?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have the knowledge to answer it completely, but to what I do know is there are a lot of organizations, and they are connected in part. I don't think they're connected in whole, and I don't think that there's really a Cape-wide organization that really brings them all together. And this is one of the things that we're talking about now with the retail council that's been formed by Wendy Northcross from the Cape Cod Chamber, and the Chamber wants to reach out, and we're doing that right now, to local businesses, region at a time, to find out what the problems are of businesses, and what can the Cape Chamber do to help the economic viability and health of the business community. I don't know if that really answers the question, but...
I can add one thing to that. I think when I first came to the Cape 9 years ago, there were a lot of organizations and there was a lot more money floating around, and so there were lots of more overlap in services, and there was more of a referral connection between the different organizations. Lots of us sit on each other's boards, and we know what's going on with each other's organizations, and we refer clients as needed back and forth. I think what's happening now with the diminishment in resources all across the board is that you're seeing the motivation for true collaboration and, offering joint programming and sharing resources is a lot more. A lot of nonprofits are more open to this type of model. You see it at the chamber level. There's some great collaboration going on the smaller chambers across the region and joint programming. You see it with, for example, the Cape Cod Fisheries Trust program is a very deep collaboration with the Hook Fishermen Association to offer that program to the fishermen. And I'll just use this moment to be really opportunistic. You see it with like-minded organizations like the Lower Cape Outreach Council, who provides emergency assistance to a lot of our renters and homeowners that we serve at the Community Development Partnership. And We Can, which is a group that helps women in transition. We're doing some joint fundraising together, which is not very common at this end of the Cape, and we actually shared resources and to put together a fabulous fundraiser that's happening on Sunday, which you can get some materials out as you walk out the door. So there's some really good collaboration happening within the organizations that we hadn't seen before. So that's, I think, a positive kind of, when your back is against the wall, you get creative in the way that you approach things. I think that's positive because I think it's a more efficient use of the resources. So.
If I could just come back on that for 30 seconds. And I got a letter last night, actually, in the mail, announcing that the Alzheimer's Association at Cape Cod is now merging with the Palliative Hospital Care, I forget exactly Hospice, thank you. And I think that you're going to see more of these things happening where we're sharing some of the resources, the office space and that type of thing. And we are starting to see some regionalization, and we see towns starting to talk about getting together and sharing your resources. And this goes back to the recommendations of Peter France in 2007. So I mean, it is happening. It's happening slowly, but it's happening. So it's a positive trend that we're in.
Thanks. Believe it or not, we have pretty much run out of time. We have not run out of questions, but we have run out of time. We knew when we set this forum up that we would only be scratching the surface on this issue. There are obviously many, many issues based on the questions that you heard this evening and the comments of our panelists that have to be addressed going forward. We're all aware of some of the major issues. So hopefully we stimulated some ideas and thinking on this subject, and hopefully at some point down the road we may well revisit this issue again and get more specific with it. But we'd like to close by offering each of our panelists a couple of minutes to maybe wrap up or give us some final thoughts. And I want to thank you before you do that for your attendance this evening.
Throw us a curveball.
We're talking about running out of time.
First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity, and Elizabeth has some final thoughts, so I'm going to give her my time.
I love the microphone. One thing that didn't come up in my comments that I'll leave you with, and that is this upcoming vote on the ballot next in November, the question 2 about the repeal of the 40B legislation. My colleague here talked about how the economy and growth is tied to the rehab and housing industry, and I think it's been that way all over the country. It's certainly been that way in Massachusetts, and it's been the main driver to build affordable housing, this comprehensive permit law, and it's under threat of repeal. It has been responsible for 80% of all the affordable housing in Massachusetts. It's been responsible for over 67% of all the affordable housing on Cape Cod. And it's used for all kinds of project sizes. The Cape, it's about 16 units per project, so it's fairly small. It's used by groups like, nonprofit groups like the CDP and also Habitat for Humanity for single houses. So, there's a lot of different really good work that gets done with this comprehensive law. And our board has taken the stance to promote the vote no on question 2. I just want to leave, since this is a nonpartisan group, and because a lot of people ask me if I'm allowed to talk about this as a nonprofit executive director, and the answer is yes, and it's a nonpartisan issue. All the candidates for governor have come out in support of this, both on the Republican side, the Democratic side, and the independent side, as have the local candidates. So this is not a politic issue. It's really about maintaining a tool that is a major piece of our economy, and that is providing housing for our workforce and our senior population. So I will leave with that comment. Thank you.
Anyone else care to share some closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just, I love to talk, so it's this has been a great experience for me, and I would love nothing more than listening to what all of you had to say. I'm a firm believer on listening to what all my employees have to say, what ideas they have. So I'll even offer, I get about 100 emails a day, so if anybody wants to contact me with their thoughts or whatever, it's sid@snowscapecod.com. So, but I want to thank all of the questions, and I hope that, we've shed some light, because that was our mission, to try to inform and educate.
And again, sincere thanks to our panelists for your attendance this evening. I just want to follow up on Liz's opening comments about this organization, the Orleans Citizens Forum. I've been involved for about 6 months now. It is an incredible organization. It is a very worthwhile endeavor, and we would encourage all of you who are not members to please join. They do good work, and there's more good work down the road. So, again, thanks for coming.